welcome to Media Spectrum, where stories still matter. So, today we're going to be talking about The Godfather. And, man, this is kind of an intimidating movie to talk about because it's The Godfather, It is one of the most highly reviewed, highly ranked, highly praised, highly imitated movies of all time. It's something where even just its name means the best. Like, you'll hear people say, oh, this is the Godfather of video games, or, oh, this is the Godfather of television, this is the Godfather of something or another. Like, that is how synonymous this movie is with simply being the best. And it's all true. Like, everything you've ever heard about this movie is true. It is contemporary Shakespeare. It is a scathing critique on the American dream and how it's falling apart. It is an incredibly insightful look into how the aspect of family is changing and has changed in America. And everything about it still holds up. If anything, a lot of the points and themes of it hold up even better today than they did back then. It is aged incredibly gracefully. The music, the costume design, the production design, the set design, it does an immaculate job of taking you back to the 1940s and early 50s when this movie takes place. This is one of the most authentic mob movies ever made, to the point where they had an actual real-life mob enforcer playing Luca Brasi, the mob enforcer in the movie, where they famously had a member of the mafia look over the script as an advisor. The famous story is that he took a red pen, and every instance where the movie said the word mafia, he cut it out, because no one in the life would actually use that term. They don't acknowledge it exists. There are so many ways the movie borrows from real-life history. You have Johnny Fontaine, who's a clear stand-in for Frank Sinatra. You have Mo Green, who's a clear stand-in for Bugsy Siegel. Much like Shakespeare, it borrows very, very heavily from real history, while tweaking things just enough to keep it entirely fictional. Of course, the acting in this movie is legendary. You have to start with Marlon Brando as Don Corleone. Marlon Brando is one of the, Mount Rushmore iconic actors to ever exist. And this is his famous signature role. Even if you've never heard of anything else Brando's done, you know about this role. The way he just completely disappears into playing a man who was way older than he was in real life. Again, this is what I mean. This movie's kind of intimidating to talk about, because what more is there to even say about it? This is a performance that has been studied for decades by actors, by writers, by filmmakers, by anyone interested in movies. You have Al Pacino starting his career, going from a virtual unknown playing Michael, doing an incredibly subtle, nuanced performance. Like, just looking at his eyes in the beginning of the movie when he's innocent and away from the mob, versus his eyes at the end of the movie after the arc his character has gone on. It's an incredible performance. You have James Caan as Sonny, taking a character who very, very easily could have been a total hothead stereotype, and finding just enough little ways to ground him and make him feel very, very real in a role that's, I think, kind of underappreciated. Diane Keaton also launched her career off this movie. The late, great Diane Keaton recently passed, rest in peace, who does very good as Kay, as kind of this symbol of innocence. I will be talking more about her shortly, though. Then, of course, you have John Cazale. God, an actor we lost way too soon as Fredo. I will say, I was surprised coming back to this movie after a couple years, just how minor his role is in this. He has so much more to do in Godfather Part 2 that I thought he was a bigger character in this movie, but he's very, very minor. That said, he's excellent in the screen time he has. If he was not actually sloshed during that wedding scene at the beginning, he does an incredible job of pretending to be. And I think my personal favorite, though, is Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen. He gives such an incredibly nuanced, level-headed, realistic performance as a guy who is just always the calm in the storm. He's always the voice of reason who's rarely have ever listened to. And there are just so many little things he does. Like, if you go back to early on, the Hollywood scene, where the director starts getting all angry, talking about what happened with Johnny Fontaine. And Tom doesn't laugh, but you see just like the smallest little smirk on his face as as the director is getting angrier and angrier. You just see the smallest little smile. It is so subtle. Yeah, he's really underappreciated for his performance in this movie, I think. So, if I'm here telling you that it is as great as you've ever heard, with so many nice things to say about it, saying it is an absolute masterpiece, why do I not think that it's perfect? Well, there's really two reasons. The first is kind of the obvious one. It's the one most people would be expecting. That punch. There is a scene there's a scene relatively early in this movie where Sonny is beating the shit out of a guy for reasons I won't spoil. And he throws some of the most god-awful punches I've ever seen in a movie. I've seen WWE wrestlers throw more believable punches than this. I've seen fucking Jake Paul throw more believable punches than this. It is shocking to see something this shoddy in the film. It always makes me laugh unintentionally. It takes me out of it for a moment. But, I mean, in all seriousness, this is a very old movie. This was being filmed on actual film, not digital, so it was a lot more expensive to film on. It was a lot more of a hassle, much more of an endeavor, much more of a process to refilm something. It's happening during a pretty big set piece. They're in a very realistic-looking 1940s New York street with lots of cars out. There's kids running around. There's a fire hydrant going off. So it may have been totally impossible to have refilmed it. So I can kind of give them a pass for this. The real issue, and the issue that I don't ever see anyone address when talking about this movie, I think, is Kay. I think Kay is kind of done dirty in this movie, frankly, on two different levels. The first issue I have with her is the fact that she's non-Sicilian. She's not even Italian. And that's not an issue in and of itself. It's actually really, really fitting for Michael early on to be with an American girlfriend instead of a Sicilian girlfriend for where he is in the beginning of the movie. But the fact that it is a total non-issue, that is hard to believe. That is very, very strange if you actually stop and think about it for even a moment. Like, seriously, in the entire movie, nobody ever says a negative word about the fact that Michael is with a non-Italian. No one gives him a joke about it, no one gives him grief about it. And if you know anything about the Italian mafia, I mean, it's a problem on two levels. The first one is when we're talking about lineage and bloodline. Now, if you don't know, if you're brand new to stories about the mafia culture, you know nothing about it, one of the big rules is that you have to be pure Italian to be what they call a made man, to be an official member of the family.
But Jimmy and I could never be made because we had Irish blood. It didn't even matter that my mother was Sicilian. To become a member of a crew, you've got to be 100% Italian.
This all could be very serious issues that are coming up through Michael marrying a non-Italian. And what does that mean for his kids down the line? See, this is where it starts getting to be a problem. Not right now, but 20, 30 years down the line when it's time for the next generation. I guess if you want to say that Michael's arc is that he doesn't want his kids to take over, and so he's purposefully sabotaging, that would make sense, except Godfather Part 2 makes it perfectly clear in a couple scenes that he intends for his sons to take over eventually. So, yeah, this seems like a really big problem. I don't know, I'm not an expert in the Mafia, so maybe the fact that he is the son of a Don already kind of gives him different rules. Maybe the rules just don't apply in that case. Maybe this is only, like, with new members that are not already associated, that they're so strict on bloodlines. I don't know. It just seems like such a huge potential problem that nobody ever brings up. And again, that's only me talking about the bloodline aspect. Then you just think about the cultural differences. The fact that there's so much stuff about this life that Kay is not going to understand, that's going to be alien to her. And, I mean, that pays off in a huge way in Godfather Part 2. Not to go too much into that movie, because I'll save my thoughts for that on its own video. But in Godfather Part 2, we do see the very real consequences of Michael marrying a non-Italian play out. And it is just so unbelievable to me that throughout this whole movie, nobody ever has an issue with it. Nobody ever brings it up as a problem. So it is just bizarre to me that there's that sort of oversight there. The second problem with Kay in general is I think she's just kind of an underwritten character, especially her romance with Michael. Because we see them in the beginning of the movie, they seem like a very nice couple, they're getting along well together, but Michael cannot even say I love you to her on the phone. When they have this kind of last dinner before he knows he's going to get more involved with this war starting up, he is just so completely cold in the way he walks away from her. And then when we see this whole relationship with Apollonia play out in Sicily, I mean, just look at the way he looks at her in some of these scenes. He looks at her with a love and, frankly, a hunger that he never looks at Kay with. It's strange, you know, he comes back after everything that happens in Sicily, and Kay has seemingly not moved on with her life. He just finds her while she's working with this group of kids, apparently as a school teacher now. And even after years apart, she just immediately gets in the car with him after one conversation, even after saying, oh, he's involved now, even though he said he was never going to be. I'm not trying to be mean, but with the way she's portrayed in this movie, she just seems so weak. She has no agency of her own. She's just kind of a helpful moron who cannot see the flashing red signs clearly in front of her. And frankly, with how cold Michael is the entire last half of the movie, that could just be his PTSD that has him frozen like that in general. But even when he says, I love you to Kay, does it ring authentic to you? It doesn't ring authentic to me. And so, how are we supposed to interpret this storyline? Because if the storyline is that Michael never really loved her, but truly loved Apollonia, and that was his real love, and then he comes back, if he just needs a woman to give him babies, why go with Kay? Because again, we're bringing up all the issues for being a non-Sicilian. He lives in frickin' New York City. Surely he could find an Italian girl to marry to just give him babies if that's all he wants. And if that's not the story, if he genuinely does love her, I think the movie kind of fails at telling us that story. And that is a problem. So, again, for everything else the story does so well, this just feels so weirdly incomplete. It feels like we're missing pieces of it. And you know what? It turns out that all these critiques I just brought up are, in fact, addressed in deleted scenes. In my research for this little overview, looking at what other YouTubers online had to say about it, seeing if anyone else brought up this issue, the glorious algorithm brought me a half-hour video of deleted scenes from The Godfather. And in those deleted scenes, these things I just brought up are in fact addressed. There is a deleted scene very early on in the movie where Don Corleone is talking to Michael just after the wedding, and he makes a pretty snide comment about your American girlfriend. And that's it. That's all there is. It's never brought up again. It's never addressed in any of the other deleted scenes I saw. I still wish they had talked about it a little bit more. But you know what? I do also appreciate the subtlety of this. Because just knowing that Don Corleone does not fully approve of his son having an American girlfriend forces you to think, well, why would he not approve? And even if you don't know any of the bloodline stuff, you can probably pick up on the cultural aspect of this. I mean, hell, the fact that as Italians they're Catholics and she most likely is a Protestant, that alone could cause issues, especially back then. So, do I wish that the movie talked about it more? Yeah. But at least in that deleted scene on the cutting room floor, they did address it. There is another scene, again, pretty early on, where we see Michael and Kay in bed at their home, getting a call from the family, making up a story about, oh no, we're at this other place, we can't be there till blah blah blah, so they can spend more time together. And they're so playful, they're laughing, it's mildly sexy because they're in bed together, so obviously the implications.
Say no because of the implication.
And with that scene, even though it doesn't give any extra plot context, I think it adds a lot. I think it makes their entire romance so much more believable. It is so much more believable having seen that interaction, that is something that would stick with Michael, that he would long for, that he would want to come back to go with Kay, even if she's not necessarily the smartest choice on the table. And it makes Kay a little less weak. It makes it easier to understand why she would still love this guy after all this time. And that's probably the number one reason why I can say with my full chest that the movie is not perfect. Because there is, in fact, a stronger version of it existing on the cutting room floor. And look, I know at a 3-hour movie, it's already pushing it. The sequel's 3.5 hours. And a lot of people argue the sequel's even better. And I've only talked about what those deleted scenes added in this aspect of Kay and Michael's relationship with her. It adds more. There's a scene that really fleshes out Mama Corleone. We see how she reacts to someone in the family getting shot, and it speaks volumes about who she is. Again, it's so small, but it tells us so much about her. We see more interactions from Sonny that make him less of a hothead and make him more believable, more grounded, more well-rounded as a character. I could go on. This movie is so good. It's so close to perfect. If I were to give it a score, I'd say like 98 out of 100. It just kind of eats at me, knowing that there is, in fact, a superior version of this movie on the cutting room floor. And man, I wish you could see that. So as it is, we have with The Godfather a movie that is extremely important. It is a masterpiece. It is wonderful. It is incredible to watch. But it could have been just a little bit better. Still, definitely worth watching. Well, anyway, that's my thoughts on The Godfather. So, what about you? Do you think I have a point on this? Am I just crazy? Am I talking out my ass? Let me know down below. Just tell me what you honestly think. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. And for that matter, what other movies would you say are perfect or near perfect? Is there any other so-called perfect movie that you think has a big problem nobody else talks about? Let's talk about this. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay sane, stay human.